Ever since George A. Romero's Night of the Living Dead from 1968 helped redefine the modern screen zombie, these creatures have become a staple of the horror genre alongside monsters such as vampires and werewolves. Earlier zombie stories were strongly connected with Haitian folklore and fears involving enslavement and the loss of free will. Romero's flesh-eating creatures were different. In fact, Night of the Living Dead called them ghouls rather than zombies, but their portrayal became so influential that audiences eventually applied the zombie label to them. Romero continued developing that vision through films such as Dawn of the Dead from 1978, helping establish many of the conventions that audiences now associate with zombie fiction. The 2000s and 2010s then reignited the genre with one major release after another, thanks to works such as 28 Days Later, The Walking Dead, and Train to Busan, just to name a few. However, I think it's fair to say that while we were flooded with brilliant zombie movies and TV shows from across the globe, several promising titles fell through the cracks and were eventually resigned to obscurity. To be fair, many of these supposedly obscure shows now possess cult followings and dedicated fan bases of their own. In today's video, I'll present 7 obscure zombie or zombie-adjacent shows that were cancelled far too soon. This video will contain minor spoilers for the programs I'm going to discuss, so consider yourself warned. With that out of the way, let's not waste any more time. Let's get this show on the road.
When you get home, check him out. It'll blow your mind.
In the Flesh, BBC 3, 2013 to 2014. I think it's fair to say that In the Flesh, a supernatural drama series that aired on BBC 3 between 2013 and 2014, has to be one of the most unique takes on the zombie genre. Unlike most works in this genre, In the Flesh doesn't primarily concern itself with the initial zombie apocalypse or constant scenes of survivors fighting through hordes of the undead. Instead, it explores the aftermath of a world that has already survived such a catastrophe. Allow me to explain the series' premise briefly. In 2009, an event called The Rising occurred. Thousands of people who had recently died suddenly rose from their graves as rabid, flesh-eating creatures. Nothing particularly new there, I'm sure you're thinking. Well, here's where things become interesting. The program takes place several years later, after a degree of normality has been restored. Scientists have discovered medication that returns consciousness to many of the undead. The authorities refer to their condition as partially deceased syndrome. Those receiving treatment can think, communicate, and remember their former lives, although they remain physically dead and must continue taking medication to avoid returning to their rabid state. The government attempts to reintegrate them into society, but many communities remain openly hostile towards them. The story centers on Kieran Walker, a young man who returns to his family in the fictional Lancashire village of Rorton after receiving treatment. The series uses him and other sufferers to explore prejudice, religious extremism, guilt, trauma, mental health, sexuality, and the difficulties faced by marginalized groups. Many of the partially deceased remember what they did while rabid, forcing them to live with horrifying memories of attacking or killing other people. Unfortunately, the series was cancelled after its second season. The BBC didn't say that it had failed to attract any audience. Instead, BBC 3 explained that it had enough money to commission only one original drama series each year and had to make difficult choices about which productions could continue. The cancellation occurred amid significant changes and budget pressures at BBC 3 as the channel prepared for its move from conventional broadcasting to an online service only. Fans were particularly frustrated because the second series expanded the mythology and left several major conflicts unresolved. There has been continued interest in a revival, but no third television series has been officially commissioned. In the Flesh, therefore, remains a painfully unfinished drama and one of the most thoughtful zombie stories ever made for television. Z Nation. Sci-Fi 2014 to 2018. While my previous entry was set in a world attempting to recover from a zombie catastrophe, this next series places its characters directly in the middle of one. Created by Carl Schaefer and Craig Engler, Z Nation aired on Sci-Fi from 2014 to 2018. It produced 5 seasons comprising 68 episodes. Despite that relatively long run, I think it continues to be overshadowed by more famous zombie programs. 3 years have passed since the ZN1 virus devastated the United States and transformed much of the population into zombies. However, one man stands apart from every other survivor. His name is Murphy. Murphy was an inmate who was injected with an experimental vaccine before being exposed to zombie bites. He didn't transform into an ordinary zombie, making his blood potentially vital to the development of a vaccine. A ragtag group of survivors is therefore assigned the mission of transporting him from New York to a surviving laboratory in California. The trouble is that Murphy is cynical, manipulative, unpredictable, and gradually transforming into a bizarre human-zombie hybrid. As the story develops, he discovers that he possesses unusual powers, including the ability to influence or control certain zombies and people affected by his blood. In my opinion, the series is the unhinged cousin of The Walking Dead. It contains dark humor, exaggerated action, bizarre mutations, zombie floods known as tsunamis, enormous rolling balls of zombies, and even zombies affected by marijuana. The program was produced by The Asylum, the studio behind Sharknado, which should give you some idea of the tone. The great thing is that Z Nation is highly self-aware. It doesn't pretend to be a relentlessly solemn prestige drama. At the same time, it is capable of surprising emotional moments and genuine horror. Sci-Fi canceled the program in December 2018, shortly before its 5th season finale aired. The final episode provides some resolution, but also opens the possibility of a new phase in humanity's struggle, meaning the larger story was clearly capable of continuing. One reason the series may remain less widely discussed is that it aired during the enormous popularity of The Walking Dead. However, the two programs have dramatically different tones and storytelling priorities. In 2024, The Asylum generated renewed speculation about a possible return, and actor Keith Allen later promoted an animated continuation concept. As of June 2026, however, no officially produced 6th season or animated sequel has been released. If you approach Z Nation looking for something chaotic, inventive, and genuinely fun, while still remaining rooted in zombie fiction, you may well enjoy this one. Black Summer, Netflix, 2019 to 2021. This next entry was praised by the king of horror himself, Stephen King. Black Summer is also officially connected with Z Nation and was initially promoted as a prequel or spin-off exploring the early stages of that same apocalypse. However, the connection is extremely loose. The program uses an entirely different cast, tone, visual style, and approach to its mythology. Black Summer ran from 2019 to 2021 and produced 2 seasons with 16 episodes in total. Anyone who entered the series expecting the same campy humor as Z Nation was in for one hell of a rude awakening. Black Summer moves in the opposite direction, replacing exaggerated comedy with one of the most intense and bleak survival horror atmospheres in the genre. The show drops viewers directly into the earliest and most chaotic period of the outbreak. Its title refers to the Black Summer, a period remembered in Z Nation as a time of mass starvation, social collapse, and extreme violence. The story primarily follows Rose, a mother who becomes separated from her daughter Anna during a chaotic military evacuation. Rose is forced to travel with a constantly changing group of strangers, each of whom possesses different motivations and varying levels of trustworthiness. Together, they navigate abandoned neighborhoods, overcrowded evacuation routes, violent survivors, and zombies that can turn a seemingly manageable situation situation into complete chaos within seconds. One of the program's most effective qualities is its refusal to grant characters obvious plot armor. Deaths can be sudden, unceremonious, and extremely difficult to predict. The visual presentation often follows separate characters through long stretches of action before their stories collide. The first season attracted considerable attention, and Stephen King publicly praised its stripped-down approach to zombie terror. Netflix commissioned a second season, which was released in June 2021. However, the series then entered a long period without an official renewal announcement. By 2023, co-creators Carl Schafer and John Hyams had indicated that a third season was not going to happen, and subsequent reports treated the series as canceled. Netflix didn't publish a detailed official explanation establishing one specific cause. It would therefore be unsafe to claim definitively that low ratings or poor reviews killed the show. Black Summer remains an intense and unusually ruthless zombie drama, and its cancellation left several characters and story possibilities without a proper conclusion. Check it out. You may not be disappointed, although you shouldn't expect a relaxing viewing experience. Freakish, Hulu, 2016 to 2017. Unlike some of the other shows mentioned on this list, Freakish is much easier to describe as genuinely obscure. This Hulu series released 2 seasons between 2016 and 2017, producing 20 episodes in total. The original script listed its run as continuing through 2018, but its second and final season was released in October 2017. Freakish attempts to blend high school drama with mutant survival horror. Whether it finds a completely convincing identity is something each viewer must decide for themselves. To be fair, the people behind the series took an enormous gamble by building much of the cast around young performers known through social media, YouTube, Disney, and Nickelodeon-related productions. The cast included Liza Koshy, Megan Rinks, Melvin Gregg, Leo Howard, and several other performers with established teenage audiences. And don't worry, I won't judge you too harshly if you don't know who these people are. I promise. The story begins with a group of students from different social circles attending Saturday detention at Kent High School. A massive explosion then strikes the nearby Keller chemical plant, releasing a toxic cloud across the surrounding town. The students soon realize that anyone exposed to the dangerous material may transform into a violent mutant creature. The survivors call these creatures freaks. The group becomes trapped inside the school and must contend with toxic air, dwindling supplies, personal rivalries, suspicious newcomers, and the creatures gathering outside. What follows is a desperate struggle for survival mixed with old-fashioned teenage drama. Awesomeness TV produced the program, while Hulu distributed it as an original streaming series. After the second season, the series quietly disappeared without a publicly detailed cancellation announcement. Awesomeness TV subsequently underwent major corporate changes and was acquired by Viacom in 2018 after the closure of Verizon's Go90 service. However, no authoritative public evidence proves that this corporate transaction directly caused Hulu to stop producing Freakish. The safer conclusion is simply that Hulu didn't order a third season, while the precise internal reason was never publicly confirmed. Despite my somewhat critical description, I think there is an audience for this program. The episodes are fast-paced and binge-friendly, meaning you can complete the entire series relatively quickly. Just be warned that the second season doesn't provide a fully conclusive ending.
Police! Holy shit! We gotta go.
Daybreak, Netflix, 2019. One of the more overlooked zombie-adjacent programs of recent years has to be Netflix's 2019 series, Daybreak. Netflix canceled it after only 1 season consisting of 10 episodes. Based loosely on Brian Ralph's graphic novel, Daybreak is a fourth-wall-breaking post-apocalyptic comedy that combines zombie fiction with practically every imaginable high school trope. Like Z Nation, the series is deliberately self-aware. Its frequent fourth-wall breaks allow characters to explain their own versions of events directly to the audience, although the narrator and storytelling style can change as the season progresses. The story follows Josh Wheeler, a teenage survivor searching for his missing girlfriend, Sam Dean, after a biological attack devastates Glendale, California. The catastrophe has killed or transformed most adults into zombie-like creatures called ghouls. The ghouls repeatedly utter fragments of the last thoughts they had before transforming. Josh eventually joins forces with Angelica, a highly intelligent young pyromaniac, and Wesley, Josh's former bully, who now considers himself a pacifist samurai. However, the ghouls are not the only danger. The surviving teenagers have divided Glendale into rival groups based largely on their former high school identities. The cheerleaders have become an organized faction, while the jocks operate under the violent authority of Turbo Pekaski. Daybreak mixes comedy, pop culture references, romance, action, and occasional brutality in a way that may not appeal to everyone. It's claimed that it received mediocre ratings from both critics and viewers. Critical reaction was mixed rather than universally poor, and the program attracted a vocal fan base that campaigned for its continuation. Netflix canceled Daybreak in December 2019. Less than 2 months after its debut. The company didn't announce an official reason or release sufficient viewership data to prove exactly why it ended. It's therefore reasonable to infer that Netflix didn't believe its audience justified another season, but that remains an inference rather than a confirmed explanation. The cancellation was especially frustrating because the finale established a new power structure and clearly prepared the characters for another conflict. Daybreak is arguably the most lighthearted show on this main list, and may provide a breath of fresh air for viewers seeking a different kind of post-apocalyptic story. Sadly, its early cancellation means that its larger story remains unfinished. The Returned, A&E 2015. Continuing through the enormous wave of undead television produced during the 2010s, our next entry moves away from Daybreak's comedic approach and into a surreal, supernatural mystery. The Returned is a 2015 American adaptation of the acclaimed French series Les Revenants. The American story takes place in the fictional town of Caldwell, Washington, an isolated community where several people who died years earlier suddenly return. These individuals appear exactly as they did before their deaths. They have not visibly aged, and many don't initially understand that years have passed. The Returned are also not traditional flesh-eating zombies. They can speak, think, feel, and attempt to resume their previous relationships. However, their arrival coincides with disturbing events that suggest something far more complicated is happening. Their reappearances force families to reopen old wounds and confront grief they believed they had already survived. The program tells its story through several interconnected characters, whose individual experiences gradually reveal a wider mystery surrounding Caldwell. That approach adds emotional depth to a series concerned less with conventional zombie survival and more with memory, bereavement, identity, faith, and the consequences of impossible reunions. So why was it canceled? The American adaptation remained extremely close to the French original during much of its early run. Critics frequently noted that its atmosphere, characters, scenes, and story structure closely resembled the French version. That similarity left the show with a creative problem. Viewers already familiar with the French production had little incentive to watch a less distinctive retelling of the same material. However, it would be too strong to declare that this alone caused the cancellation. The Returned premiered to more than 1 million viewers, but lost a significant portion of that audience over its 10-episode season. A&E canceled it in June 2015, approximately 1 month after the first season finale. The network didn't release an extensive statement identifying one precise reason, but its declining ratings made a second season increasingly difficult to justify. The Returned remains obscure partly because it lives in the shadow of the more acclaimed French series that inspired it. Nevertheless, viewers unfamiliar with the original may still find the American version an atmospheric and emotionally engaging supernatural drama. Just remember that it ends without resolving its central mystery.
So
Santa Clarita Diet, Netflix, 2017 to 2019. Comedy and gore are not two words that people always expect to hear in the same sentence, but Netflix's Santa Clarita Diet blends the two into one of the most entertaining zombie comedies of recent years. The show ran from 2017 to 2019, producing 30 episodes across 3 seasons. Santa Clarita Diet stars Drew Barrymore and Timothy Olyphant, both of whom deliver committed comedic performances. They play Sheila and Joel Hammond, a married couple working as real estate agents in suburban California. When I say average, trust me, the program initially leans heavily into portraying them as an ordinary couple living an extremely typical life. Everything changes when Sheila suddenly becomes violently ill while showing a house. She vomits an enormous amount of material, including a mysterious red organic ball, and briefly appears to die. When Sheila regains consciousness, she discovers that she has no heartbeat. She also develops heightened confidence, increased energy, fewer inhibitions, and an overwhelming craving for human flesh. Thankfully for Sheila, Joel is an incredibly supportive husband who's prepared to go to terrifying lengths to protect his wife and manage her new diet. What I love about the series' take on zombies is that Sheila is not portrayed as a decaying, shambling corpse. On the contrary, she initially becomes more vivacious, outgoing, and confident after her transformation, although her condition also creates increasingly dangerous physical and psychological complications. The couple receives help from their teenage daughter Abby and their neighbor Eric, a nervous but knowledgeable teenager with an interest in the paranormal. Together, they attempt to understand what happened to Sheila, locate the origin of her condition, conceal the family's growing collection of crimes, and determine whether a cure is possible. The series is an absolute comedic blast, but its humor is contrasted with extremely graphic violence and gore. Even comedy fans with weak stomachs may struggle with certain scenes. During its 3-season run, Santa Clarita Diet developed a loyal fan base and received increasingly strong critical reviews. Netflix nevertheless canceled it in April 2019, shortly after the release of its 3rd season. It was speculated that the salaries of Barrymore and Olyphant directly made the program financially unviable. Netflix never publicly confirmed that explanation. However, industry reporting and later comments from creator Victor Fresco support a broader financial explanation. Netflix contracts often become considerably more expensive after a show completes 3 seasons, creating a financial disincentive to order 4th and 5th seasons unless a program is an enormous breakout hit. Fresco later said that the production team suspected renewal was uncertain and deliberately ended the 3rd season with a major cliffhanger rather than making cancellation easier for Netflix. He also revealed that he learned the sets were being dismantled before receiving a proper personal explanation that the series was finished. Therefore, while we can't identify one precise viewing figure or salary that caused the cancellation, Netflix's 3-season cost model appears to have been an important factor. Whatever the exact calculation, Santa Clarita Diet deserved an opportunity to resolve the shocking transformation teased in its final moments. Bonus: Dead Set E4 2008. Before ending this video, I must give an honorable mention to Dead Set. Dead Set's a 5-part British horror miniseries created by Charlie Brooker, who later created Black Mirror. It aired on E4 across 5 consecutive nights from October 27th to October 31st, 2008. Unlike our 7 main entries, Dead Set was not a regular program canceled before completing its intended run. It was commissioned and produced as a limited serial, which means it doesn't technically qualify as a show canceled too soon. However, it remains an essential recommendation for fans of unusual zombie television. The story follows the contestants and production staff of a fictional series of Big Brother during a zombie outbreak in the United Kingdom. The contestants inside the Big Brother house initially remain unaware of the catastrophe because they're isolated from outside news and communications. The program combines brutal zombie horror with a cynical satire of reality television, celebrity culture, audiences, and the entertainment industry. Dead Set used elements connected with the real British Big Brother production. An eviction sequence was filmed at the actual Big Brother house during a real eviction night, while the fictional house interior was carefully designed to reproduce the program's familiar appearance. Several former Big Brother contestants appeared as themselves. Longtime presenter Davina McCall also played a fictionalized version of herself and later appeared as an especially memorable zombie. Dead Set has developed a strong cult reputation and was nominated for a BAFTA. It may not be a prematurely canceled series, but its short length makes it a fast and extremely effective zombie binge. While zombie programs and movies may not arrive with quite the same frequency that audiences experienced during parts of the 2000s and 2010s, there are still plenty of overlooked shows capable of scratching that undead itch. This list has covered everything from satires and comedies to supernatural mysteries and genuine survival horror. Some of these programs were canceled because of identifiable budget or ratings problems. Others simply disappeared without their networks or streaming services giving audiences a complete public explanation. In the Flesh lost its place amid BBC Three's restricted drama budget. The Returned suffered from declining ratings. Santa Clarita Diet appears to have encountered Netflix's increasingly expensive post-third season model. However, the precise reasons behind the endings of Freakish, Daybreak, and Black Summer were never publicly explained in enough detail to justify presenting speculation as fact. Hopefully, the dead will rise again in sufficient numbers to flood our television screens, because zombies never truly go out of fashion, do they? Tell me which one of these shows you're going to watch first in the comments below. For now, it's time for me to say goodbye. I hope to see you in the next one. Until then, stay safe and stay marvelous.